Como é que é, pessoal? Bem-vindos novamente ao Underground Voice ao vivo. Hoje tenho a honra e o prazer de conhecer uma das lendas vivas do thrash metal, Nige, de Onslaught. Man, thank you so much for being here. It's really nice to meet you and to have you there at Underground's Voice. Huge honor. So the new album, Generation Antichrist, was released in August, and it's really awesome. Super fast, super aggressive, and it's a great comeback after 7 years waiting for an album. How do you feel about this one, and how's being all the feedback?
Um, it's great, man. We're all completely blown away with how the album's turned out. Um, as you say, 7 years is a long time, but we've been very busy in that time. As fans will know, in Portugal, we've been several times in that period, and we've been basically toured the world twice and lots of other shows. So we've been constantly working. It was just kind of with the sixth album and then the 30th anniversary of the fourth album, we kind of got sucked into all these live shows and tours and kind of forgot about writing a new record. So yeah, when we came to do Generation Antichrist, lots of fresh ideas. So yeah, I mean, it was a great album to write. And as I said, we're just so stoked with the way it's turned out, and the reception from the fans and the press has been incredible. So yeah, it's been worth the wait, I think.
And sometimes people argue about the differences between the old school thrash metal vibe and the modern thrash vibe, saying that one is better than another, and saying that the old vibe is the real deal, and the new vibe is a temporary wave, and all this stuff. Well, Generation Antichrist is the proof that it's possible to mix old and new influences and vibes, because it really sounds like that. Would
Yeah,
you agree? Was your intention to have this approach for this album?
yeah, thanks, man. That's it's totally what we aim for when we worked on this record. There's lots of, I guess basically we went back to our roots for the style of songwriting, and we used several riffs that I had from 1983 on the record as well. So we looked heavily at maybe the fourth album, took our influences from our own thing, what we were doing then, and obviously our influences from Discharge of Motorhead are quite clear on this record. Um, and then we added a kind of uh, brutal modern production, I guess, with Daniel Bergstrand doing the
Yeah, and I can see some differences between this new album and Six, the previous one. The main difference maybe is that Generation Antichrist is almost 100% your creation.
yeah.
And he left the band, so he was the main writer in that time. Um, so this album is all your creation, almost 100%. All the dynamics have changed for this album. Do you feel comfortable having almost all responsibility for the album?
Um, well, it was things I'd done in the past with the first four albums. I'd written pretty much all myself. Then when Andy joined the band, we kind of wrote everything kind of 50-50. We were bouncing ideas off each other constantly. So it was a complete collaboration between myself and Andy on the musical side of things. So when he left, obviously, with two new guys joining the band, we didn't feel they were ready to kind of step into writing yet, as that they were not settled members of Onslaught and really quite understanding the vibe of the band. Similar to what Gary Holt was with Slayer. They didn't want him to write. They didn't feel he was ready to write yet. So it was the same kind of thing. So yeah, it was a bit nervous going back to writing an album by myself. I did have some contributions to the other guys, which was fantastic. They made some great input. Some very cool parts came in from Wayne in particular. But yeah, I did write like 90% of the album, I guess, myself. And it was cool. I mean, I was writing stuff and sending it out to the rest of the guys to listen to and kind of get their approval on it. And that's one of the reasons we kind of looked at, and let's go back to the old school a little bit, because obviously having written the early albums, it was going to get the same kind of feeling about it. And I think we discussed the direction. We said, let's go back to a little bit more simple songs, less complex arrangements and intricate riffs, which kind of thing, which was what Andy brought to the band. Shorter songs, more hooks and gang choruses and things like that, which were more noticeable in the early days of Onslaught. So that's what we did. And once I got into the groove of things, it was kind of nice, locked away in this studio here, doing the album, and it's worked really well. Obviously, next album, I think Wayne's going to have a lot more input, which would be cool. But now he's finding the direction with Generation Antichrist of what's gone on and how we like to work. So looking forward to the next one already.
We're looking forward to. So as we said, we had to wait 7 years for a new album, and then it's released in the middle of a pandemic.
Yeah.
So how frustrating is to release an album after all this year and not being able to present this to the fans and live?
Yeah, it was a double-edged sword, really. We decided that it would be a good thing to release the album during the pandemic, because many bands had cancelled or postponed their releases. We looked at Testament and maybe Lamb of God still going ahead with their album releases during that time, and kind of weighed everything up. There must be some good benefits of doing that during a pandemic, and there was, for sure. The amount of focus we got from the record label, because I think they only put out 5 albums during the first 4 months of the pandemic, I guess. So we got a lot of attention from the label, and the same goes for press. Obviously, with less releases going out, you get much more focus from the media side of things as well. And it worked really well. I mean, sales and chart positions all across the world have been like fantastic. So in that respect, it worked amazingly well. But then obviously the downside is nobody knew how long the pandemic was going to last. We certainly didn't expect it to last this long. So we've been hit by the lack of shows to go out and follow up all the amazing promotion we had from the online media with live shows. And it still doesn't look now like we're going to play any shows, I think, until summer 21, if we're lucky. So it's kind of hit us hard on the second half of the year. But like I said, the first half with the album release was incredible.
Yeah. Well, I really think you're a warrior. And if the band still exists, it's because of you, your effort and love for metal, for sure. You have to be very persistent to resist to all the lineup changes and to come back so strong in 2004 after a break with more than 10 years. So you never gave up. It's not been an easy trail so far, but I'm sure you feel even more proud of this journey after releasing an album like this one. Am I right?
Yeah, for sure. And it's never easy, but this second journey of Onslaught, since 2006, 2005, has been incredible. It's just upwards all the time. And let's hope that when all this dies down and we get back on the road, things keep taking that upward trajectory. It's been an amazing journey over the years, and that's so much fun. Sometimes it's tough, you say, with the lineup changes, but we always use that to our advantage. If we lose a member, we try to find somebody who's going to come in and improve things even more. And I think I honestly think this lineup that we have right now is probably the best lineup that Onslaught has had. I see a lot of potential with what we can do, with what James, the drummer, brings to the band, and Wayne, the guitar player, obviously, and obviously Dave Garnett is going to bring a whole new aspect to the band's live show as well. He's got so much energy, and he's a very cool guy. So yeah, we just can't wait. We played one show together back in February, just before the lockdown, and you can imagine Dave's frustration right now. He's put out his first record with Onslaught, and all he wants to do is play some shows. So he's bursting at the seams with so much energy to get out there. So yeah, the next journey is to come after the pandemic, and I think it's been a great ride, and there's still a long way to go for Onslaught yet.
Yeah. Um, as we said about the lineup, you can change the lineup on the guitars, bass, and drums, and still have the same musical identity. Of course, with different approaches, but you can still have the same identity. But it's more difficult to keep that with different vocalists, maybe. And this happened with Onslaught a few times. Is this hard to deal with?
Vocalist, yeah, very difficult. That's the problems we had when Cy left the band the first time around after the Force, and Steve Grimmett came in, and that really didn't work out for the band at all. I think it kind of diluted our sound with the In Search of Sanity album, with Steve's vocals and the mix we had, and the fans really didn't take to it. As much as it was our biggest selling album, don't get me wrong, massive selling album, but we lost a lot of fans on the way. Obviously picked up a lot of new ones, but a lot of the hardcore fans didn't really take to that album, you know. And it wasn't until we came back with Killing Peace, I guess, we won those fans back, you know, and we're continuing to do that and build as from now. But when it became clear that Cy was no longer going to be part of Onslaught, it was obviously a big worry. And luckily, Dave was on our doorstep. You know, he's best buddies with our drummer. They were in the same band together, so we knew of Dave's talents. I just didn't realize that he could deliver vocals in that style. His normal vocal style is a bit more. I can't think of the right word. A bit more coarse and dirty than what he's done on here. But he said he'd love to give it a shot with us, and so we gave him some demos to work on. I think it was maybe Religious Suicide and one of the other tracks, and they came back and they were very, very good. They still weren't quite the finished article, but you could see the potential in his voice, and his commitment is amazing. So what we did was to get a producer friend of mine, a guy called Peter Hinton, who had produced the first two Saxon albums, to come in and work with Dave on the vocals when we were doing the recording, because Pete's such a calming influence, but great experience and knows exactly what Onslaught needed, you know. So he went in with Dave to record the vocals, and for like the first few lines, that was it. We knew that Dave was going to be perfect for the band, and Pete just got some amazing performances out of him in the studio. So we seen it as kind of similar in ways to Cy, but he has his own identity at the same time, you know. So we kind of knew it was going to work. Once we had the finished article of the album, everybody was blown away with it, and it was the fans just took to it straight away. I can honestly say, hand on heart, that we've not had one negative comment about Dave. Obviously, lots of people have said, "I was sad to see Cy leave," and etc., etc. But Dave has brought a whole new dimension to the band without changing the sound, if you like.
Yeah. And Onslaught is a huge band, one of the biggest European thrash metal bands. I mean, could Onslaught be a worldwide top status band with a stable lineup in all this year? Probably a tough question, because I mean, we can see it from 2 points of view. For example, Sons of Violence is by far one of the best thrash metal albums ever made. So you're obviously a very talented composers. On the other hand, if the lineup was the same all over the years, and comparing to the previous albums, probably Sons of Violence wouldn't exist, or it wouldn't sound the way it does. It's some of the pros and cons of all these lineup changes, right?
Yeah, that's a great question, man. I think our biggest problem, I believe Onslaught should be much, much, much bigger than we are, as do many other people say the same thing. I think our biggest problem lies with that In Search of Sanity album, you know. As much as it sold lots of copies, and I say it kind of tarnished Onslaught at the time and caused us to split. And And I think that's where the problem lies. If we'd have made In Search of Sanity how it should have sounded, how we thought it should have sounded, not the record label decision to make it sound how they wanted it to. And I think we may have continued through the 90s, which was a tough time for thrash. But if you look at all the bands that did continue through that period, they're the ones who came out the other side and built bigger careers in the 2000s. You look at Career, what they did, they changed some in the 90s, dips and troughs, came out the other side, and now they're much bigger band, and Slayer the same. So yeah, I think that was our biggest problem. So when we came back, we had to completely, obviously we had a fan base, but we had to completely rebuild everything. And as you say, Sounds of Violence, maybe in a different time, if we could have continued, would have been a much bigger album. But hindsight's a wonderful thing. We know the mistakes we made in the past, and that's affected our career going forwards. But it's still building. It's never going to build to the masses it could have done before, unfortunately. But you never know. We always strive to be as successful as possible. We try to write the best music possible and play the best shows. So you never know. You never know what's going to happen. You never know what's around the corner. But it won't be for lack of trying, that's for sure.
Yeah. Anyway, many bands are accused of releasing the same album every 2 years, but we can't apply this to Onslaught because all your albums, or a lot of them, are different from each other. Does the fact of a few years past between the release influences this? Not only because of the lineup, of course, but I'm sure you're different persons with different ideas and motivation and inspirations comparing to the previous album, for example.
Yeah, I mean, obviously lineup changes play a big difference to the sounds of the records, as does the amount of time in between albums, 7 years in particular. But I think if you look, I think between Six and Sounds of Violence was probably the closest we've had. And even though they're very different albums, and it's something we like to do with Onslaught. We don't want to make albums that sound the same. I mean, to me, that's pointless to put out the same album twice. So we're very thoughtful of that when we're making a new record. And it's nice to have maybe 2-3 years. 3 years is nice for me to be able to get fresh ideas, move away from the previous album, and just get brand new influences coming in all the time. And this is one thing that's slightly concerning me at the moment, because we have nothing else to do at the moment but maybe write new music or start working on new music. And for me, it's a little too close to Generation Antichrist to start doing that at the moment, because I don't want to make Generation Antichrist 2. So we have started work on a record, which is very unusual for us to be working on a new album literally 5-6 months after the past one. But we need to make most of this downtime, I guess. And we've got the album titles together, all the song titles together. The riffs are coming in, and we're starting to piece ideas together. So it's just going to be a challenge to keep it not sounding like Generation Antichrist for now. But we're working hard on it, and there's lots of cool ideas going on. So maybe 2 years between albums this time, I guess.
Yeah. Looking forward for this new album. And I know you love Portugal and to play here. Do you have any special memories for our country about everyone here? And do you have plans to come back whenever will be possible to do some tours again?
Yeah, I mean, every time we come, it's just an absolute pleasure to come. People are fantastic, the climate's fantastic, food's fantastic, shows are always fantastic. Everything about it. I mean, I personally, I'd love to live in Portugal. Every place we stay, it's like, oh, I'd love to live here. It's incredible. So yeah, of course there are plans to come back. I think it's a couple of years, maybe 18 months, 2 years since we were in Portugal last. So the time's right to come back again once we can start touring. So we'll be looking at some shows and festivals as soon as possible, of course. But yeah, absolutely incredible. One of my favorite places in the world.
Always welcome. Finally, thank you so much for being here. It was a huge honor to have you at Underground's Voice and to meet you. So, last words for the Portuguese fans and Underground's Voice viewers.
All I can say is obrigado. Thank you so much for all your loyal support over the years, for all the amazing times you gave us in your wonderful country. And we just cannot wait to come back and play for you guys and ladies once again. It really is an honor all the time. And we hope you enjoy the Generation Antichrist album as much as we do. And we'll see you as soon as humanly possible. Until then, be safe, take care, and keep on thrashing.
Yeah. Thank you so much once again and stay safe.
Cheers, Christoph. Thank you, man. Pleasure.